I want to share with you a very important thought, something that should be with our hearts and minds every moment of the day. I recently read an account of an interview with Rabbi Berelwein, and this interview is brought in Rabbi Pesach Kron's new book. And I actually heard him say it when I had an opportunity to be with him on a trip to Spain this past Thanksgiving weekend. And Rabbi Kron was actually the one interviewing Rabbi Berelwein. Rabbi Berelwein is one of the most accomplished people today. He's a historian, a writer, he was a Rosh Yeshiva, a Rav, a producer. He's a jack of all trades, somebody who has made great contributions to the Jewish people. And he's describing his upbringing and the way he was raised as a child. He was an only child. He was brought up in Chicago in the 40s. And one day, 1946, he was 11 years old. And his father says, Beryl, today's a great day. One of the great rabbis are coming to Chicago. We have to go to the airport and greet him. All the rabbanim, all the rabbis of the city are going out to greet him. And they're going to escort him to the shul. And all the yeshiva students are going to be in the shul. And we're going to hear words of Torah and words of inspiration from this great rabbi. And little Beryl says, who's this rabbi? His father says, Rabbi Isaac Halevi Herzog, the chief rabbi of the state of Israel. Okay, so they go to the airport and they welcome the chief rabbi. They escort him to the shul. The shul is filled to capacity with rabbanim, with balabatim, with yeshiva students. The yeshiva of Skokie fills up the shul to greet this great sage. And Rabbi Isaac Halevi Herzog gives a shiur to the assembled gathering. And after the shiur, he turns to the young men, to the Bachrim in the crowd, and he says, and now a message for you, young Bachrim. He says, I want you to know that I just returned from Rome, where I had the audience of the Pope, Pope Pius XII, and I carried with me the names of 10,000 Jewish boys and girls, many whose parents placed them with Catholic families and institutions to try to save them from the Nazis. And I said to the Pope, these are our children. Give them back. We only gave them to you because otherwise they would never survive. But now we're here. Now we're alive. Give us back our children. And the Pope looks at me and he says, we can't. We have a law that once a child is baptized, we can never return him to another religion. These 10,000 children were all baptized. They're ours. And with that, my audience with the Pope was over. I pleaded with him, but to no avail. And then Rav Herzog, in front of this assembled gathering, breaks down at the podium and he begins to cry. And he cries and he cries and he cries like a baby. And then he rears his head, and this tzaddik lifts up his head, and his head is burning fire, and he roars like a lion, and he says, I cannot do anything for these 10,000 children. But you young men, what will you do for the children of Klal Yisrael? What will you do for the future of the Jewish people? Are you going to remember this? Don't ever forget what I'm telling you. And he repeated himself again and again and again. Don't forget what I'm telling you. And in this interview, Rabbi Wein paused for a moment. And he said, do you know what keeps me going? Because when I went on the line to greet Rabbi Herzog looked me in the eye and he said, are you going to forget what I said? Every time I'm tired, every time I'm weary, every time I want to put my pen down and say enough for the day, I am haunted by the words of that tzaddik. What are you going to do for the Jewish people? What are you going to do for the future of the Jewish people? And when I saw this interview and when I saw the story, to me, this is not a story and this is not just an interview. Because this is something that I heard firsthand from my grandfather. He should live and be well. Grandfather, God willing, this Purim, Hashem should watch over him, will be 101 years old. And he was in a DP camp in 1946 in Germany. And he met Rav Isaac Halevi Herzog in the DP camp. And Rav Herzog told him that during 1943, he had the audience of Pope Pius XII, and he went to meet the Pope, and he asked the Pope to close the glass chambers, and the Pope said no. And then in 1945, he went back to the Pope with the list of the names of the children, and again, the Pope refused. So to me, this is not a story, this is something that I know firsthand from my grandfather. And this is something that every Jew should think to himself, that every single Jewish person today who has the merit to be from the She'eris HaPleita, the small remnant of Jews who are left after 2,000 years of Golos, after crusades, after pogroms, after Holocaust. That means God selected you. We always need to ask ourselves, what are we going to do for the future of the Jewish people? What are we going to do for the children of the Jewish people? And that should always motivate us and inspire us to accomplish more and more with the help of Hashem, b'siyata d'shmaya. May this thought be with us.